Okay. Hi, Christina.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Sure thing. Okay, so let me share my screen and we'll start talking about our webinar today. A few housekeeping notes. Let me just share the screen here. So for those of you who've been on a couple of webinars know this, but first of all, it's recorded. We'll send the recording after the session. Secondly, if you have questions, feel free to ask them in the Q&A. It just makes it easier for us to follow and answer. If you have comments, tools that you use in AI and want to share, links to articles or whatever that you read and you think is super cool, feel free to share those, of course, in the comments, in the chat. Just feel free to ask questions. It is an open session. Our objective will be to talk about how to leverage AI for scale in your customer marketing and customer advocacy. We'll show some examples. And I think with that, we can get started. We will run a poll at some point. Yeah, and that's kind of it. We'll send, after we run the poll, we just randomly pick 5 people and send them an audiobook. So hopefully you'll be one of those. With that, I think we can start. So just a quick intro about what we're going to talk about, a minute about base, and then we'll dive into the content that Christina prepared for you all. So don't forget, we're going to have a cool public product webinar in September, 20th of September. It might change date, but it's planned for 20th of September. We're going to show what base really is, do a full product demo. Also have Louis, one of our customers, join and show how he uses base at Alteryx. It's going to be super fun. And with that, let's talk about our webinar today. So today we're going to focus about AI in general, and what does it mean for marketing specifically, and then what does it mean for customer marketing more specifically. Some tools we recommend, some examples, some best ways to adopt it. Like I said, open session. Feel free to ask questions as we go. We'll try to answer them. Before I dive into that, a couple of things I want to share. So one of them is I love sharing some stats around what customer marketing is and where it's going. And I think it is also relevant when we talk about AI and AI for customer marketing. So first of all, just so you know, customer marketing has been one of the top 25 growing jobs on LinkedIn, both in 2022 and in 2023. So hooray for us. It means that CMOs and companies understand the value of lifecycle marketing and customer marketing. Now, when you ask analysts like Gartner, but what really is this thing, customer marketing? And I think this will help tie also to our discussion of how AI applies. You can see that it's basically marketing, as we all know, to your existing customer base, marketing post-sale. And some of it is advocacy programs, not necessarily the core. For some companies it is, for some it isn't. Some of it is upsell, cross-sell campaigns. Some of it is voice of customer programs, whether those are user groups, feedback, reference programs, whatever, beta customers, and so on and so forth, cabs. Then you have things like adoption education campaigns and some customer success enablement. So when you think about the role of AI for customer marketing, and we'll talk about AI for marketing, which is a more general question, we kind of ideally want to say, okay, but how can AI help with these things, with basically the different programs that customer marketing runs? So how does AI help with advocacy versus how does it help maybe with references versus how does it help with, customer success enablement and so on and so forth, and of course, upsell, cross-sell. So just to those of you who don't know Base, quick introduction. Base is a customer marketing platform. We support the different customer marketing use cases of upsell, cross-sell, adoption, advocacy, references, retention, marketing, and so on. It's one system to manage all of those. We're super happy to have more than 50% of our management be led by women, and we're excited to have such amazing customers like we have here, Christina from Hubspot being one of them. So that's kind of a little bit about us for those who don't know us. It's an integrated customer marketing tool. I won't dive too much into it, but whether it's advocacy and reference programs or lifecycle marketing, community marketing, and so on, referrals, kind of We have it there, and we're very focused, and I think that's another place that AI we can discuss. We're very focused on the attribution part of it. We're very focused in the journey part. There's a great podcast that I listened to, actually, from the CMO of HubSpot, Kip Bodnar, and the CMO of Zapier, Kieran Flanagan. They're amazing. They're also fun. But they really, really dive deep into AI, and they talk a little bit about, and one of their takes just from the last 2 weeks is like, marketing is going to own much more of the customer journey. I kind of, I raise my hand and then subscribe to that as well. I think that marketing, because of AI, because of so much automation and things happening, marketing is, and the other, by the way, the other take they have is that AI is amazing for marketing. I'll also show a survey from Drift that kind of supports that. But they're kind of saying that marketing is one of those departments that helps really adopt new tools. When you think about it, marketing is one of those departments that really has a lot of tools. They adopt things, they try, they fail, but it's kind of the MO of marketing. That's not the MO of R&D. That's not the MO of customer success. That's not the MO of sales. So marketing is best prone to be actually that department that champions AI in the organization. And I'm sharing that because I think it ties to this discussion here of what is our role as marketers and customer marketers in organization in adopting AI, and then talking about the journey. So other thing kind of on share that it all also will tie to revenue, understanding the revenue, which is something that we do. And we at Base, look at tracking the journey, then engaging customers with AI and with also smart, pre-planned or automated content, and then tracking the outcome of that. I'll skip all this. And yeah, I think we want to go directly to our discussion. So I'll start with, and then I'll kind of move it to Christina. So I'll start just with saying these are some of the stats that came out from a survey that Drift did that just now with the Marketing Artificial Intelligence Institute. We'll share the link to that survey here, so you could go and look. It's pretty interesting. I'm not sharing all of it. Initially, a lot of it seems obvious, but I do want to kind of touch a few of these. So first of all, I want to say that, it's clear across our survey, we see that a lot, that, AI is top priority for marketing. I can tell you that it's not necessarily the same in other departments. At least in my company, not every department is bullish about AI, as marketing is and could and should be. So you really need to think of yourselves as champions of AI also in your organization in many formats. The second thing that they saw is that, they're primarily looking for AI to save time, and I'd love, as we have the discussion later, Christina, do you agree with that? Is that what you do? And do you think that this is where it's going? I have a couple of other takes on that, but that's at least where it is today. So when you think of adoption AI tools at this stage, it's really a lot about, many times saving time. Then, one of the things that they talk about is, they expect it to be widespread in the next year. So it's not something, and we know the AI iteration phases, it's not happening in years, it's happening in weeks, and the adoptions happen in months. It's super, super fast. I think, this is what we talked about. So there's significant optimism. If a lot of people are thinking that AI is going to replace my job, I think many marketers understand that it won't necessarily take their job. Yes, I mean, if you're a big company, you have 25 content writers, maybe a few of those content writers will be replaced by a content writing AI. But in most cases, AI would elevate marketing, and there's optimism about that. And the last one is the one that I think we can also move on to the webinar with, is talking about most of them are still in the early days. This is also the graph that you see here. 50% are intermediate. You can see 35% are beginners. Really, only 11% are advanced. So don't be in this stress mode where, hey, everybody's doing AI. They're super, super savvy, and I'm just way back there in the dinosaur era. That's not the case. People maybe say it is, but surveys many times show not everybody is that advanced and savvy with AI right now. You don't need to do things like 1,057 ChatGPT prompts. Nobody that you can use every day. Nobody uses 1,000 prompts every day. It's all okay. You can use paid tools. You can use not paid tools. I think the first step is just to have what we call AI literacy. And this is a framework that somebody at Facebook shared actually on that podcast, and I really liked it. So, first of all, she says First of all, just know what's safe in AI. What does it mean to save time for AI? What does it mean to share which data can I share, and so on? Then the second step would probably be implementing, a few prompts, a few webflows, and we'll maybe share and show some of those. And then, the actual management, scale and track, the different KPIs of what AI is doing for you. And one way that you could start adopting AI, if you're not doing it right now, is just like a team hackathon. Think about taking, 3 hours, half a day, whatever, and just saying, hey, let's take the team and split into a few groups, take some topics, for example, content with AI, if we're talking marketing, versus saving time with AI, versus, I don't know, like optimizing our advocacy, list or whatever it is. And just give those groups time to think about what tools, how can we do it better? How can we leverage AI? And after those 3 hours, you'll find that, hey, here are some ideas we should adopt and start adopting them next week. So that's kind of, I think, the way to path forward. And with that, I think, Christina, I'll give you the Zoom to share your presentation. Let me stop sharing.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Let me go ahead and get my...
I see we have a few questions, so I'll ask them as we go.
Up.
Hopefully.
All right. So once again, I'm honored to be sharing my thoughts on AI and how I personally use it to scale my customer marketing efforts at Hubspot, and how I think it's really that next level tool to be able to get to you to what you need. So I am an award-winning community builder and advocacy strategist. I work for Hubspot and run our Hub Fans advocacy program. We have Inbound coming up next week, which is going to be an opportunity for me to meet a lot of my advocates and Hub fans face to face. So I'm very honored to be able to talk about this and really kind of showcase what we're doing at Hubspot, as well as what we're seeing in the greater landscape. So before I get started, I do want to give like a little bit of a disclaimer. This is not an exhaustive list of AI and what it's capable of. So if I don't mention it, doesn't mean that that capability doesn't exist. It just means that these are the things that I'm really kind of like over indexing and hyper focused on. So just to keep that in mind. So for me, what I really like to think about it is I like to view AI as the intern that you've always wanted, the smartest intern that you could ever possibly get. I know a lot of us, especially when budgets have been hit the past 2 years, that it's been very hard to get the resources that we need, as well as the headcount that we need to really kind of take our programs to the full extent of what they're capable of. And so what I really like to think about as an intern with AI is I'm going to let them do the first pass. So if there's something I need to write, I create a prompt and I put it in ChatGPT, or I put it in ChatSpot, or I put it in our content assistant first. I let them run the first pass. So if you are either an IC and maybe you haven't led a team before, or maybe you're a people manager, but you don't have as many people on your team as you'd like, what is easy for you to delegate, knowing that it doesn't have to be the final finished product once you've delegated. You're going to have to massage the wording. You're going to have to personalize it, change some of the verbiage so that it's aligned with the verbiage that your specific brand uses and its nomenclature. But now you kind of turn yourself into the editor. So instead of being the person that's writing it all and starting from scratch, you are now the one that's carrying the red pen and are able to really kind of get things to the next level. And so that makes your work incredibly efficient, but it also helps you, more importantly, evolve and adapt your work. So for me, what I really like to do is to kind of analyze where we could possibly utilize this. And so, like I said, I like to give AI the first stab. So because we are in the second half of the year, maybe you're working on planning docs. Maybe you're trying to figure out, what does 2024 look like for your brand? What kind of programs do you currently have? What are you going to stop, start, continue? What are you thinking about doing? Member comms? I'm sorry, but I don't like writing an email every single day with like different points of view and how do we make it personalized and all of these things. And so being able to go in there and say, I need a email invitation for this type of event that includes these takeaways. Give me 5 variations of how I could write this. And then I can blend them, choose what kind of verbiage I like, choose what kind of tone I want. I can also go in there and massage it and say like, hey, I like this, but can you make it more concise? Or, hey, I like this, but can you make it more comfortable and casual in tone so it feels more comfortable with us, whatever that looks like. And then data analysis, depending on what tools you're using, you can incorporate it and integrate it into your work so it can actually work with your specific data. And this is important to note because depending on what tool you use, it could be an IP issue. So for example, we've had a lot of issues this past year. I think Samsung was one of them, where they had proprietary code that was being shared with AI tools. And so that's a big no-no. So if you're using tools, just make sure that you know what the security of it is. Is it integrated? Is it secure? Who would have access to that specific data once you put it in there? And if you know it's secure, then that's going to give you the opportunity to really drive those conversations and be able to analyze and create visualizations of data for you.
Can I add a few of my use cases here?
Yes.
So a few things I think you can start with as well. First of all, is transcriptions. They're both free and paid tools, but you could basically a full 1 hour webinar like this or meeting or whatnot. You came out of a meeting, it was super long. So I mean, yeah, if you have transcription, if you have Gong or whatnot, but I mean, you could just take that transcription. First of all, take the video, put it in an AI tool that will give you that transcription. Then you can go to another tool like Claude and basically start creating, summaries of that and maybe some ideas of workflows and so on. So it just helps you, action items, things like that. That's one thing that I think is helpful. Other things are, we talk a lot about content creation. So at least in Base, we launched 2 AI kind of features that relate to that and save time. One of them is when you start a campaign in the system, it goes and helps you kind of create, the text for the campaign, and later on will also help you create the images, so just save time on campaign creation. The other one is if a customer, and this goes to customer marketing use cases, but think about it, if a customer just submitted a blog or a co-authored blog, the AI will help you just, structure the blog, put, the right wording to it and whatnot. So, I mean, some content is one of the places where you can start, whether you get, and we'll talk about the customer marketing use cases, but you got a customer story, you got a blog, you got an article, you could basically leverage ChatGPT or other content tools, copy AI or whatnot, and kind of get faster work done on that versus, you trying to kind of go through the first version. Sorry.
No worries at all. That's absolutely true. I think there's a really great opportunity, especially in the content realm, to be able to drive this. I think it's also important to know too that as you're pulling all of this information in, depending on how you write the prompt, and you can be as exacting as you want. What I like to do is start with a pretty basic one, telling the in this case it's ChatGPT, like who are they and what is the knowledge that they bring to bear immediately. And then what I like to do after that, depending on if it's not giving me enough, what I like to do is I like to have ChatGPT ask me questions back and be like, are there any questions that you would ask in order to make sure that you're able to get the most, like the strongest MVP of what this could look like?
Very
and
smart.
So, like I said, the more you treat it like the smartest intern in the room, you'll start naturally behaving with it. Understanding that like it's not going to be perfect. You're going to have to make some things, but it's going to keep your guidelines and it's going to understand. And the thing too that I really like too is if you have like a specific like working style guide for your brand, like we don't use any verbiage that's above an 8th grade writing education, or we have sentences that don't have more than this. You can actually say and dictate like, hey, write this, but write this in this specific writing style. And if you don't want to do that, you can even give it like the rules, like these are the rules I want you to write this in. If you're an IC, one of the things that I would also recommend doing is, as an IC, you wind up wanting to you want to tell everybody every single thing you're working on. And leadership just can't. There's too much going on. They don't want to hear about all of it. So if you're doing like weekly or monthly check-ins and you're detailing all the things you're working on, put that into your AI tool and say like, make this more concise and prioritize it based off of like these KPIs, and have it do that for you so that you don't have to worry about that disconnect between how ICs speak and how leadership speaks. And your leadership they'll notice, they'll realize like, this is the format I like, and this is bulleted, and I don't need to ask questions. And you provided the KPIs and metrics that I would care about. And so really kind of detailing and I hate to keep using the word massage, but you have to really massage the AI to make sure that it's continually learning off of what you need. So it's gonna over time be able to create just better and better product for you. Here,
I love it. And just
Oh,
one tip
sorry.
on that.
Mhm.
I think it's a great idea to share it with leadership and use it to kind of, summarize and give them, everything you're doing in the programs and all your achievements, but in a very short way. Just add, even in the signature or somewhere there, curated by AI. Why is that great? Twofold. First of all, if they don't like it and they want changes, well, they know that it's you and the AI, then you can work and change it. The second thing we talked about, organizations really wanting, like your CEO wants your organization to adopt AI. Okay, now they're kind of figuring out how do we do that. If your manager, CMO, or whoever your manager is, sees that you're one of the early adopters, that you're actually using already AI for some of the stuff, that just helps, you get more, more leeway with them on actually doing more things and maybe helping the organization adopt AI. So I think just this little thing of, I did this with AI, I think they'll like that and appreciate it, and it will help you get more face time with them.
Absolutely. And Kevin, I see your question. How are you combating giving AI your proprietary competitive intel when using it to craft a leadership update? Fantastic question. I use Hubspot Content Assistant. So I use our Hubspot tool, which is secure. And so I know that I'm not giving it any content that it's going to share anywhere else. And so that's how I do that.
And there's, just so you know, yeah, the whole issue of content and data and security, of course, is a big thing. ChatGPT just released actually their enterprise version as well. So hopefully that will be secure. AI has, Azure has, you can use Azure that has, the Microsoft has their tool with Azure, and then it's secured as well. So if you use Bing AI, but I think one of the things that we see companies do, and we do as well, is, you just take out some of the customer data. So for example, don't of course put the customer email in there, which is anyways not something you're going to share there. And don't necessarily, if the AI doesn't necessarily know to connect, hey, this is our revenue, it's from these deals. So you can put in all the data and get all the summaries, but just switch, the company's names, give them number, or not say that the revenue associated. So do some things that the AI will not have all the data, and that kind of helps you overcome that as well. Be kind of smart in the data that you share with it, and not necessarily share everything that's sensitive and just add it on later.
Absolutely. And in your prompt, you can actually have it be like %, so that you actually are like subtracting the data that you don't want it to be shared. And the thing that's interesting to me too is, as customer marketing is growing, customer marketing leadership knowledge isn't necessarily growing at the same thing. So they know that they need a customer marketer, and they're going to hire somebody, and they know like what to ask for, and they're going to basically ask this person to stand this program up. I just had someone from LinkedIn who reached out to me because they had just started a customer marketing position, but they've never done customer marketing. And so they're like, can I talk to you? Do you have resources? And so there are a lot of times where you're given the project, but you don't have any of the other pieces. And so for planning, I really love something where you're able to say, like, give me these different customer marketing and advocacy things, give me OKRs, give me things that I need to be keeping in mind of, because it will help guide you into what this is the usual use case. Because a lot of people are flying blind, sadly. And so being able to use this is almost like a guide as to like, how are other people doing these things? How are they standing up these programs? What are the metrics that are more likely to be seen as important for these specific activations? And it doesn't have to be the end all be all. Like, you're able to change if you do have guidance that it's going to be different, or maybe it's going to be more aggressive or less aggressive than what you currently have. But it's a really great way to start pushing you in the right direction, which I find incredibly helpful. And then you just personalize it based off of what your team really needs. What I really like about having ChatSpot as a tool is because it's in your HubSpot, now you have AI plus CRM. So now you're able to actually use a lot of this data that you've already collected to make sure that you're able to either stand up and ship a program, or you're able to continue to grow it, make sure you're pulling attribution, all those things. And so depending on what you have set up in your CRM, whichever CRM you're using, really thinking about what do you have available for them. So for example, if you have something in their contact file that showcases what their NPS survey results are, then you could say, hey, can you pull the list of the people who had like top 10% of NPS scores? or NPS in the last quarter. And that's going to help you figure out like who are the people who absolutely love us. Maybe they could be a great participant in our advocacy program. They already love us here. How can we get them to love us externally or things like that? Or maybe,
and I think,
yeah,
just to add to that, with AI, you could, in a way, make it more sophisticated and say, I want a combination of data points. So I want NPS score plus, let's say, product usage data, plus maybe their ARR or, whatever, or the products they use, because like HubSpot has, several product lines, for example. So, and maybe you want to promote now the Sales Hub. I'm making this up as we go, but so basically, like, hey, I really need more advocates using Sales Hub because I want to tell that story. So find me those that are using that product, but also have, this high NPS, have been using it for at least so long, and have, have some product data that shows high usage, right? So, I mean, it helps you actually create very quickly sorting that helps you identify, the top advocates. You could run that also in base AI, but you could use an external tool for it as well.
And it's a really great opportunity for you to really think about and tailor, like, what do you want to know about your advocates, your potential advocates, and really kind of evolve what it looks like. So a lot of these, we're showing you like what to do, but it really starts at like asking the right questions. Like, who do you want to be these advocates, and what are the opportunities that you think are available to them? What kind of data do you currently track? A lot of you might be watching this call and saying like, I'd love to do this, but we aren't actually collecting the data that we would need to be able to ask that question for AI to pull it. Like, you might have NPS, but they might be in some like spreadsheet somewhere, and you haven't found a way to connect them so that it's easily accessible so you can pull it. So this is a really great opportunity, especially as we're preparing for 2024, to think about, where does your data live and how are you able to access it? And do you have the data that you would need in order to either build a program or scale it based off of like figuring out what are their new needs and what does that look like? And so, like you said earlier, yes, it does save time, but it's also an opportunity for you to really kind of amplify and accelerate the kind of work that you're doing, and whether it's identifying advocates, whether it's delighting them. Take, for example, let's say that you go into ChatSpot and you ask them to pull like all the customers who've been a loyal customer for the past 10 years. And you want to do a delight campaign. I'm going to pull those names. I'm going to go ahead, figure out like, what are we going to send them? Is it swag? Is it a special invitation? Are we inviting them to a dinner with C-suite, whatever that looks like? But really trying to figure out like, what are all the activations that we can utilize with our fans, and how are we able to identify who they are as we're continuing to do that work. And when you get to that point, let's say that you're doing this delight, you're going to create a personalized email that you're going to send to these 100 people. The problem with this is that we've gotten to a point where we have the smart information here, like community name and new member name. That's kind of the beginning and end of personalization as we've seen it. And people are really smart, and they've seen this for a very long time. And they know that even though their first name is in the email, chances are they're not the only person getting this email. So imagine being able to segment even further by saying like, I'm going to pick the people who are in North America and have been customers for 10 years. And we're going to have a specific different variation for them with the colloquialisms, with that specific language versus something else. Then maybe we do EMEA. We're going to use Queen's English. We're going to like whatever that looks like. But now with AI, you're able to create member comms. You're able to create more variation in addition to personalization that you're already using. And so it's just a really nice, easy way for them to feel like, I'm not the only person, like I might not be the only person getting this, but I'm not on this laundry list of like thousands of people that you're saying you're personally inviting me, when I know it's not personal. And so really think about what you can do to really kind of get things to that next space. And so especially if you're doing workflows and you need like slight variations, being able to create like these game theory trees of how people can behave and what member comms looks like, this is a really easy way to be able to create like 10, 20 different emails that you would need for like a really thoughtful, thorough workflow without having to write them all from scratch. And so even having in the AI, write a response to this email, assuming they didn't answer the first one, or write a response to this email, assuming that they opened it but didn't RSVP. And so being able to give guidance as you're walking through that customer behavior is just one more way that it's going to be able to take lift off of you so that you can really be thoughtful about how you're talking to people. And then when you are making edits, they're really minute and really things that are going to make it feel more special.
Just adding on that, one of the things, some of us work on a global level, so I mean, it's not just the language maybe and cultural gap, but also, hey, but what's happening there? Like, are there any holidays or special events, or like, a very important soccer game in Germany right now or whatever? So, I mean, what you could do is, again, ask the AI to tell you, hey, here are the 5 countries that I'm going to, reach out to this month. What's happening there? Like, what are the big news past month or this month that maybe, we should kind of incorporate in our content. Like Christina said, it's your best personal assistant or intern, and you just, those are the questions you would ask them. They would come to you and say, and then when they come back and say, hey, this is the holiday in Germany, and they say, okay, what should the campaign look like, right? So it just helps you build that and make that super personalized also on a global level.
Absolutely. And so this is the same thing. If you're wanting to do data analysis, what are all the different ways that you can do this? And what I really like is this is going to be able to give you some really like general breakdowns of the data analysis. And then you being the customer marketer, now you can probably take this information and now you can be prescriptive. So instead of just saying like, well, this is what the data shows, like this is the number percentage, now you as the human can now evolve and elevate those learnings to, all right, well, but what does that mean? And like, what does that mean for our work and what we're going to do in the future? How would we do things differently? And so really think of this as the evolution of your work. So not just adaptation, but the evolution of it. I firmly believe that AI is going to be very similar to how we saw computers and how it changed the workspace for a lot of people a few decades ago, well, not a few decades ago, but decades ago, whenever computers became mainstream in offices and in work culture, there were a lot of people who rejected using computers either because they were afraid they were going to lose their jobs or they didn't want to learn it. And what that did do was that did close doors to them. And so I would really see this from a childlike mind. Find ways that you feel are not as risky to be able to play with a chat GPT or a chat spot or whatever that looks like, and really kind of come from this very curious mindset of what could I do with this? How can I play? No one's asking you to be an expert. What they are asking for is an open mind. And I find that if you are in a position to see how it can evolve your work, what you can do now differently, how you can take your programs to the next level because of that free time, because of the personalization that you're offering, the new people that you're able to attract, what you're able to do is I need you to rewrite your job description. What can you now do that you couldn't do because you didn't have the resources, you didn't have the time, but now you can because you're able to utilize this as an assistant, as an intern. And so it's a really great way for you to control the narrative. A lot of people are worried about this is going to take my job. If you are in a position to educate others on how you are doing your job better because of it, I have more results. I'm being able to do more events. I'm able to work with more advocates. I'm able to pull this many, like whatever KPIs you're looking at. If you're able to showcase that this is a supplement to your work and makes you a better worker, that doesn't make AI a threat. If anything, it makes it an asset for you to essentially protect yourself as much as you can. I think if we've learned anything over the past 2 years, no one's really safe. But what you can do is you can minimize your risk. And so look at this as an opportunity to minimize your risk of being laid off or being let go because you're able to showcase the add-ons, the value add that you've been able to bring to the table because you were open-minded and proactive and you started integrating this into your work.
Totally. I want to double down on a few of the data analysis use cases. So, and maybe you also take it into the realm of advocacy and customer marketing. And again, feel free to add yours, Christina, or anybody from the audience. But for example, so let's start with trends and insights, right? It's one of the things, and we talked earlier about your weekly or monthly report to management. So trends is one of the most important things, of course. Like, what are we trying to do? So one of our customers kind of did the analysis, and it took them more than a month to figure out initially how much of our customers in the programs are from, whatever, Fortune 500 versus SMBs, and then are there correlation patterns between, SMBs and how they participate in the program versus Fortune 500? Are there influences on retention, adoption, expansion, and so on? And all this data, again, when you don't have a system to do it specifically, it will take you a lot of time. If you have a system, great. If not, use AI, ChatGPT, and again, with the reservations of what data you share and what you don't. But basically, you can use AI to kind of analyze and say, okay, let's look at, here's a list of all my customers and whatever, their engagement level, split them by patterns of company size, right? That's the first one. Then you say, okay, next, okay, now that we've split them by pattern size, let's see if we see any, insights or trends, insights in the sense of, how, for example, SMBs participate versus bigger ones, then trends, has it changed in the last 6 months or in the last year, things like that. So you start becoming smarter on what's happening in your program, and that should help you then take decisions on, okay, so here's maybe things I want to do in my program. By the way, you could even ask ChatGPT, okay, so what would you do to solve this? And they would give you it would give you some solutions as well. But then you could, both share those trends and graphs with your management, and again, they'll kind of say, okay, and again, always add just what Christina also mentioned, like, fortifying your job. So add this, hey, and I've used, AI to find this. So kind of show that you're doing advanced insights, but also show that you're also using advanced tools like AI. So I think that's one thing with data analysis. Another thing is really understanding, like, many times we see that, hey, we need sales or customer success to tell us who can be an advocate or to give us information about some customers or whatever. With AI, you could basically come to them with that. You can say, hey, customer success manager or team, I actually did the insight, and here's some interesting things I found about our customers. For example, I'm just sharing something now. Here are like 150 customers who are super active in a community, have never opened the support ticket in the last, well, not never, but in the last year. NPS is pretty good. Why can't I turn them into advocates, right? And then, you're using data with them. It will be very hard for them to say you can't. And then I would add on another one. I would kind of say, okay, can we agree that whenever I find these kind of results in the future, I can just add them and I don't need your approval, right? But I mean, use, and I'll share the reports with you so you can see it, and I'll share the AI insight with you so you can see it, so they feel, that you're not kind of disconnecting. But I think leverage AI because it actually can make you smarter, if it's okay to say so, than teams that just work on the data they have and don't take it to the next level.
Perfect. So, Kevin, I want to answer your question. So I'll answer the second question first, and then I'll do the first one. So can you clarify the pound sign and percentage sign prompt that you just talked about when you have a moment? So what I would do is write a prompt, and then whatever you would essentially redact or like black marker, like whatever's proprietary that you don't want to share, just have that be with like an X or a pound sign or a percentage or anything, so that it essentially leaves a space for that in the response and the answer that it gives you, but it isn't actually collecting any data that you have. So anything that you could even put redacted, like I completed X percentage events, for redacted product. So anything, so depending on how proprietary the data is that you're talking about, essentially act like you're with the CIA for a second, and anything that would be redacted, make sure it's redacted in your prompt. So that way, when it's pulling, it'll still be able to showcase what you're doing, but it's going to still be redacted. So you don't have to worry about that. Then for the next one, then with most AI platforms, per my understanding, is what you put into the AI solution becomes part of the open domain. Are you saying HubSpot is using the AI domain, but it's not putting what you put into it into the public domain? So because there are different levels of API, especially with like the OpenAI ChatGPT, depending on how you're building on top of it, then you are able to All right, I already did that. Cool. So what you wind up doing is you're able to essentially choose what tool you're using. If security is a major thing for you, then you want to be able to pick tools that are specifically tailored to secure. Or there is a part of the payment plan, if it's like an enterprise level or something like that, that you are creating something that is secure. So for here, if you see here for this is Chatspot, this is on the main page once you sign in. The data is not used to train models, so it's not going back into the open domain to be able to fix things. And the CRM data is never shared with third parties. So if you are specifically using a CRM tool and you want to use an AI tool that's with that in order to essentially pull this data, I would just recommend using a tool that specifically integrates with your CRM, whether it's Hubspot, whether it's something else, but just make sure that it is very clear whether or not it is secure. That's a very good question. You definitely don't want to be essentially like shooting yourself in the foot while you're trying to be efficient. So data security is incredibly important, but with Chatspot, like I said, the data is not used to train models, and we don't share that data with third parties. So I hope that answers your question. Now, with this, and this is not an exhaustive list, and honestly, like by the time you finish one of these images, it's already obsolete. Like there's probably like 10 like API integrations that are being worked on like in one state at this time, let alone the world. So this is very much just thinking about like how people are utilizing different AI tools, and to really kind of, if you're unsure, then think about it in terms of like jobs to be done. And then you can start looking and seeing like, all right, we need something that does text, for example, but we need something that's also going to be secure. And we need something that's going to be able to create this type of content, or we need to be able to do, it needs to be able to fix code or whatever that looks like. So think about it in terms of what is the job to be done that you want these AI tools to do for you. Basically, what would you delegate? What do you not like doing? What would you want to send to somebody else? What do those look like? And then what are your must-haves? Is there data security? Is it that it needs to be free? Is it that it needs to integrate with a specific product or other tool? Does it need to be attached to something else? Whatever that looks like. But figuring out from this perspective, it's really helpful in trying to really figure out your tech stack. I find that jobs to be done and that kind of perspective is what you should be asking for tech stack, period, regardless of AI. As someone who works in community, I find that a lot of people skip that step and then they wind up migrating to a completely different community platform like 1 to 2 years later. And it's because they didn't ask that question. They wanted something shiny instead of what worked and did exactly what they needed to do. So what do you need it to do for you? What are your must-haves? What are your qualifiers? What are your deal breakers also? Like, for example, if you work in the medical field, you need things that are HIPAA compliant, and that is non-negotiable. So really thinking about your industry, who you're working with, who are your advocates, what does that look like? Just being very thoughtful about what does and doesn't work, so that when you are experimenting and playing, you have as close of a safety net as humanly possible because you've done your due diligence. So when in doubt, do your due diligence.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, it's easy to get overwhelmed, right, with so many AI tools and every day, like 1,000 new ones. But when you go to that framework of job to be done, or even I would say kind of split your day, your week, your month to, hey, what do I need to do? So part of my job is planning. Let's look for planning tools. And part of my job is content creation. Okay, content creation tools. And part of my job is like working out these customer stories or customer videos. Okay, let's look at those tools for that. So, I mean, it helps you bucket down just to the, you know, the couple of tools that, and with adding what Christina mentioned about, you know, the different guidance. And you could ask the AI, actually, I need, you know, video editing tools that are free and secure, whatever, and then AI will give you those anyway. So I mean, it helps you shorten the list to each time, like for that job to be done, just you know, 3 tools, 5 tools, whatever, and really be focused on that. And you shouldn't adopt 20 at once and kind of do the crawl, walk, run approach or crawl. So, but yeah. I think that's super important because so many other tools are not related to you. There are tools that are very specific to marketing at whole and to customer marketing maybe more specifically, but the job to be done really helps. And I think we'll have some time. We'll definitely want to talk about some jobs to be done that, you know, we see in customer marketing and advocacy, but go on, Christina.
Another thing to look at this, and I wish I could find a clear image, but this is the best one I could find. But really thinking about it from more of like a technical perspective of when we're looking at the model versus application layer of AI and thinking about what's possible. I think this is a really easy way for you to showcase that, like from the model level, text is really strong. There's a lot of learning there. There's a lot of like learning models there. But as you get into video and 3D and other, there just isn't as much modeling done there. And so over time, that's going to be the place to go. So I think you're going to see a lot of people, like when it comes to content and text heavy stuff, I think you're going to see really heavy AI work over the next couple of years, but video is where everything is going. For better or for worse. I mean, we're seeing that with the writer strike, and we're seeing that with SGA and all of the strikes that are happening right now. They want to do, these big studios want to be able to model all of these background actors and then be able to essentially put those into movies in the future. And so I think it's very, I think the best service you can do for yourself is to educate yourself on what this is currently being used for and where it's going in the future, because it's just like any single tool that's ever been created. It can be used for good, it can be used for bad. And the more understanding you have of what its capabilities are, the more likely you are to really kind of avoid a lot of the bad. And so really thinking about what this looks like, obviously code and image is definitely in the next phase of that. We're already seeing fingers getting better in generative AI. That used to be a dead giveaway, but they're starting to be more and more modeling. So even the fingers aren't necessarily as easy to decipher. And so really thinking about what this looks like from the future piece of it, I think is really incredibly important. And then the most important thing at the end of the day, and I'm a huge Wall-E fan, is that all of this should be in service of you becoming more human and you using the time that you have saved and the opportunities that you have been able to create to really foster that human connection. Because as we are automating more and more and more of our lives, that means that the scarcity of humanity is going to be so much more priceless. And so how you show up in an authentically, unapologetically human way is going to become so much more important. And so as everyone's able to scale, it's going to be even harder for you to connect with people. And so you're really going to need to focus on authenticity and what's going to be human and what's not going to be human. And so really don't think of this as like, I need to basically replace myself and see if AI can do every single thing in my life. It's how can AI take the things off my plate so that I can spend my time genuinely being human and connecting with people and making people feel heard and making people feel special and appreciated, because that's going to be like the new currency in a world where anyone can use AI. How are you human? How are you showing up to be human is just priceless for people, and people will remember that. Because the thing, like, she could have emailed me with something AI built, but she called me, or she jumped on a Zoom to say like how my day was, or she gave me a hug at a conference or whatever. But really being able to foster that humanity is just, that's the big, if you leave with anything, it's how can AI make me unapologetically human when I'm talking to my customers, when I'm making them feel special, when I'm making them feel heard, when I want them to be engaged. And so I absolutely love this quote. And that's what it talks about. It talks about how our intelligence is what makes us human, and AI as an extension of that. AI is taking and curating and culminating all of this knowledge that we've shared over time. And so what it does is it really becomes an extension. And so we need to see this as an opportunity to be more human. And this is helpful because customer marketers and community managers, and one of my friends wrote for Adweek a couple of days ago about how social media managers, they're burned out. We're all burned out. The people who are creating content and trying to make people laugh and trying to make people click on a button and make people want to do things, we give too much of ourselves. Like, we give a damn every second. That's why we care so much. That's why people want to be in the room with us. They want to see us at Inbound. They want to do all these things. And so how can we take things off our plate so that we're able to really kind of not only free ourselves from this, but we're able to really, really preserve our time for what really matters most. And so really thinking about, how are you giving a damn every day? How are you showing up for your people? And what could you take off your plate that would help you be able to not be so burned out? Give it the stuff you hate. Like, you have a smart intern. What do you not like doing? What would you love to give to somebody else? What would you love to make sure is just not on your plate anymore? What are the things that you wish you could automate that you've tried to automate, but there's no clear path, or you don't even know what that would look like? Really start making those waves and those pathways towards that. It's incredibly important. And so what you need to do is you need to rewrite your job description. So if you just started a customer marketing job, or you remember the job description that you had of the job that you have, go through it. What can you have AI do for you? What do you need to make sure you are doing? What do you need to protect? This is very much as much of an art as it is a science. What do you need to protect and have human, and what can AI take on? What can you delegate? And then what are the opportunities where you think there's a gap? There's an opportunity to really scale that you've never either had the resources or the time, or you didn't even know how. What are those opportunities for scale? And then do a plan within this gap. These are the individual tasks that would help me get to that next level. And here's how AI can play a part, and here's how I, as the human, can play a part. So you have to ask yourself those questions. And this is what I really like is, if we're looking at it from like community and we're looking at it from customer marketing, you're doing all of these things, but you have to choose which hills you're going to die on. So which ones are you and which ones are AI? Which ones can AI play a part? Which ones do you not want AI to touch at all? Which ones have to be you or someone from your team? Which one has to feel human? Which one has to be authentic and sincere, and they want a human face to this? Really ask yourself those questions and make sure that you're being thoughtful. And these might change. You might want to be like superhuman when you're onboarding and when you get things in place. And then you have advocates who step up to the plate who now become a part of that onboarding process. So now you don't have to be as much the face of that. Whatever that looks like as your programs are maturing and scaling, revisit this. Are your hills still going to be the same? What needs to be human and what can AI help with? And then we do this because I firmly believe that if you want to create real lasting bonds with people, you have to create core memories. And AI is not creating core memories. They're going to remember the person who emailed them to say like, hey, I just saw that you got laid off. I know that you're an advocate, and I like, you losing your job doesn't mean we're going to drop you. Like, how can I help you? Can I introduce you to anyone in my network? It's those little things. The core memories are when you care, when you have nothing to gain. When you were there, when there wasn't a KPI standing behind you waiting for this like behavior to happen. When you care in times of feast and famine. This is what creates core memories. When people remember this person genuinely cares about me, and it's not just their job, they genuinely care. And that's what creates those bonds with brands, with delight. That's why Chewy is like God tier for customer care. They get paintings of their dogs. They get flowers when their pets pass away. They're doing things that don't necessarily scale. They're doing things that they don't necessarily benefit from, but because they show true human concern and care, that's core memory. Those people are always going to remember that they got those flowers, or they have that painting of their dog that they didn't even ask for, that showed up, and now this beloved person from their family is immortalized from a brand. It's those things. You have to create those moments. And that's it.
Thank you so much, Christina. First of all, we had a question. Can we share this slide deck?
Yes.
Okay, we didn't mention, but one of the use cases is building a slide deck with AI as well.
So we have that. So Maria, so yes, we can absolutely share that. And then Liz, I'm sorry chat's turned off. And thank you so much. I'm glad that you enjoyed it, but it really, I really hope that you walk away thinking, how can I use AI, but how can I be more human because of it?
Yeah, and sorry, chat turned off. We'll fix it for next time for sure. We'll also share the file of the recording and also a document with a lot of use cases. So one of the things we didn't talk about, for example, for customer marketing is also repurposing. So let's say you have one content, video, story, a review, doesn't matter. I can help you create 10 different content pieces from that, right? Repurposing and doing, again, both saving time, scaling your job. So there's a lot of use cases that are more specific to customer marketing and advocacy, and we'll share that with you, and then we'll collaborate and even add more. We'll happy to have all of you kind of contribute to that document, make it a living thing, and like share it with the community of, different use cases specifically for customer marketing and things that people have done and seen successful. Thank you so much, Christina, for sharing all of your AI experience and also your thoughts on humanity and keeping us human with AI. Thank you all for joining us. And feel free to follow up with questions that you have to Christina or myself. Don't be afraid of AI. Like Christina said, it's probably the best assistant or intern that you're going to have. And relatively a cheap one. So and it's super, it does what you tell it. So no BS. So hopefully all of you get a chance to try something new this month, really, and start using it and sharing it with your internal teams, with your management. It will help you, I think, also elevate your role if people see that you're adopting fast and doing some stuff with it. Again, thank you for joining us. Thank you, Christina, and have a great rest of the week. Long weekend. Bye-bye.